The night began like any other, yet it turned into one of the most unforgettable nights of my life. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 7 years. We were used to our routines: work, chores, family dinners, and quiet evenings together. Life wasn't boring. It was comfortable, steady, and familiar. Still, there was always a part of me that missed the spontaneous adventures we used to share when we first met. I never imagined that a tiny mix-up would bring all that magic rushing back. Daniel had been under a lot of stress. Work deadlines, late-night emails, and endless conference calls had been draining him. For weeks, he struggled to sleep. His doctor had suggested a mild sleeping pill, something just enough to help him rest. He bought them but rarely used them, worried he might become dependent. That evening after dinner, I noticed the tiredness in his eyes. "You should take one tonight," I suggested, pouring him a glass of water. "You've earned a good night's rest." He smiled, kissed my forehead softly, and nodded. "Maybe I will." I went to fold the laundry while he shuffled through the cabinet for his medicine. Minutes later, he joined me in the bedroom, tablet in hand. He swallowed it down, yawned, and climbed under the sheets. I turned off the light and slipped in beside him, expecting his steady breathing within minutes. But instead of silence, he began talking. "Do you remember the first time we met?" he asked suddenly, his voice oddly lively. I laughed in the dark. "Daniel, you're supposed to be falling asleep, not starting conversations." "I know," he chuckled, "but I can't stop thinking about it. That coffee shop, the one with the broken air conditioner and the worst muffins in town. You were sitting in the corner, reading a book with this concentrated little frown on your face. I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." His words startled me. He rarely spoke like that anymore, not because he didn't love me, but because daily life had made such sweetness rare. "Yes, I remember," I whispered, smiling into the dark. "And you spilled your coffee all over your shirt the moment you tried to talk to me." He laughed louder this time, a warm, boyish laugh I hadn't heard in ages. I was nervous. My hands were shaking. "I didn't think you'd give me the time of day." I rolled onto my side, facing him. "But I did, didn't I?" "You did," he said softly. "And it changed my life." An hour passed. He should have been asleep, but instead, he grew more energetic, telling story after story. He talked about our first road trip, the time we got lost and ended up sleeping in the car under a blanket of stars. He reminded me of our first apartment, the tiny one with the leaky faucet, and the neighbors who fought every night. He recalled how we used to cook together, even when the kitchen barely had enough space for one person. "Do you remember the burnt spaghetti night?" he asked between fits of laughter. "How could I forget?" I said, covering my face. "You opened all the windows, fanned the smoke alarm with a magazine, and swore you were never cooking again. And yet the very next night we made pancakes at midnight." "Best pancakes of my life," he replied. The hours ticked by, but neither of us noticed. Instead of drifting into slumber, Daniel kept unraveling memories like a storyteller. His voice was alive, his smile radiant even in the dim glow of the nightlight. It was as though the man I first fell in love with had reappeared, unburdened by stress, responsibilities, and exhaustion. I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop listening. He was keeping me awake, but in the sweetest way possible. Around 2 in the morning, he got up suddenly. "Come with me," he said, tugging at my hand. "Daniel, it's the middle of the night," I groaned, but he wouldn't let go. He dragged me to the kitchen, rummaged through cabinets, and triumphantly pulled out flour, sugar, and chocolate chips. "We're making cookies," he announced with childlike excitement. I stared at him. "Are you out of your mind?" "Probably," he grinned, "but you love my cookies." And so, at 2 in the morning, we stood side by side, mixing dough and sneaking chocolate chips into our mouths. He dusted flour on my nose, and I retaliated by flicking water at him. We laughed like teenagers, like two people who had no worries in the world. When the cookies were baking, he leaned against the counter, looking at me with a seriousness that cut through the laughter. "I don't say it enough," he murmured, "but you are the best part of my life." I froze, surprised. "Daniel." He shook his head. "No, listen. I get so caught up in work, in deadlines, in being tired all the time. But tonight, I feel alive again. And it's because of you. You've always been my safe place, my anchor, my everything. My throat tightened, tears threatening to fall. You're going to make me cry, I whispered. Good, he said, pulling me into his arms. Then I'm doing it right. By the time the cookies were ready, it was nearly 3. We sat on the couch, plates in hand, watching old reruns on TV. He rested his head on my shoulder, crumbs on his shirt, a goofy grin on his face. Best night ever, he mumbled. I stroked his hair, wondering how a simple mistake, taking the wrong pill, had given us this gift. I realized then that he hadn't actually taken a sleeping pill. He must have swallowed one of his multivitamins instead. No wonder he was wide awake. But I didn't tell him. Not yet. Because I wanted the magic to last. Morning came slowly. At 5, he was still talking, still wide awake, telling me about his dreams for the future. He spoke about wanting to travel more, maybe finally starting that little bookstore he always dreamed of. He even mentioned having children one day, his eyes glowing with excitement I hadn't seen in years. I was exhausted, my eyelids heavy, but I couldn't stop listening. Every word felt like a thread weaving us closer together, reminding me of the love that had always been there, hidden beneath the layers of routine. Finally, around 6, he dozed off mid-sentence, his head resting on my lap. I watched him sleep, my heart full. He looked peaceful, happy like the man I married. The man who had just given me the most beautiful sleepless night of my life. Later that day, when he finally woke up groggy and confused, he frowned. Why do I feel like I stayed up all night? I burst out laughing. Because you did. He blinked. What? I took the pill. I shook my head, holding up the bottle. No, love. You took a vitamin. His jaw dropped. You're kidding. Nope. And then slowly, a smile spread across his face. Oh, I kept you awake all night. Yes, I said, hugging him tightly. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. That night became one of our favorite memories. Whenever life felt heavy again, we'd look back on the accidental all-nighter and laugh. More importantly, it reminded us that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about small moments, stolen laughter, and conversations that last until dawn. Daniel never took the sleeping pill again. He didn't need it. Because sometimes, all he needed was me by his side, staying awake with him, heart to heart. And that was more powerful than any medicine.